Welcome to the video. This video we will discuss 61-129 10 hours supervised PIC. What is this supervised PIC time? How do we log this time correctly? And who can log PIC throughout this 10 hours of training? I have seen a number of logbooks that do not represent this correctly, and candidates, pilots and CFIs who are logging this time incorrectly. Therefore, when they come to the test, practical test, they don't have the appropriate PIC time to meet the requirements. So it's important that you log this correctly. Let's talk about how we do it. What is the correct way of logging this supervised PIC time? It all comes out of 61-129 aeronautical experience for a commercial pilot certificate. Number 4, 10 hours of solo flight time in a single engine airplane. We're going to do airplanes, but helicopters, multi-engine, same training requirements in there. There's 10 hours of supervised PIC is required. So your solo, 10 hours of solo, or 10 hours of flight time performing the duties of pilot in command with an authorized instructor on board. So you can do 10 hours of solo or 10 hours of supervised PIC. Within that 10 hours, you must do the cross-country flight of varying distances and requirements, depending on the category that you are training for, and 5 hours in night VFR conditions. So within the 10 hours, you have to accomplish these requirements. So who's logging PIC during this time? Is the CFI logging PIC? Is the pilot under training logging PIC? Depends. So let's see, where can we log PIC and how can we log PIC? 6151E talks about logging pilot in command flight time. So a sport, recreational, private, commercial, or airline transport pilot may log pilot in command flight time for flights, except when under 61-159C, when the pilot is the sole manipulator of the controls of an aircraft for which the pilot is rated. It doesn't matter what endorsements you have. If you are not rated in that category and class, whether you're the sole manipulator or not, if you're not rated in it, you're not logging PIC time. You cannot log PIC time. If you are rated in it and you are sole manipulator, you can log PIC time. So that's pretty easy. Pilot is the sole occupant of the aircraft. Obviously, you're PIC. If you're sole occupant, you are PIC. So those times that people are flying solo, student pilots are flying solo, and pilots under training for commercial are flying solo, that is PIC time. Number 3, this is all multi-crew. Doesn't apply to you unless you're doing multi-crew training. Number 4, this is an approved PIC training program. So if you are under an approved PIC training program, you may log PIC under these circumstances and in accordance with these requirements. Number 2, this is all associated with ATP, Airline Transport Pilot, flight and responsibilities. So if you're not doing that, it doesn't apply to you. Number 3, a certified flight instructor may log PIC flight time for all flight time while serving as the authorized instructor in an operation if the instructor is rated to act as pilot in command of that aircraft. So if you're a CFI and you are training somebody for a certificate, then you may log PIC time for all of that training time. If you are a CFI and just riding along with someone, you can't log the PIC time. Okay, it's for that training period, for those training instances. So these are the times you can be PIC so far. If you are the sole manipulator of flight controls, if you have a rating in the aircraft, and if you are sole occupant, and if you are a CFI training somebody. A student pilot may log PIC time only when the student pilot is the sole occupant of the aircraft. That's the only time. And of course, you've got to have the endorsement and you are undergoing training for a pilot certificate or rating. So you're not logging PIC time any other time. There are circumstances. Number 5, SIC, Professional Development Program. If you're operating under one of those, then there are times where you can log PIC time. But other than these requirements, and really for most people it's those 3, you're the sole manipulator if you have a rating in the aircraft, if you are the sole occupant of the aircraft, or if you are a CFI training somebody for a certificate or rating. Okay, those are the times you're going to log PIC, unless you fall under one of these categories. Look it up yourself, see if you do. So let's take a look at this legal interpretation, Grannis, 2016. You can look this up. I'll leave the links in the comments, the links to these legal interpretations, so you can take a look yourself. I've highlighted these particular sections on this video. Grannis is talking, this response to Grannis is talking about the 10 hours of time, solo flight time, or the supervised PIC time, where you cannot mix and match. Some people do 5 hours of solo and 5 hours of supervised PIC. Can't do it. You have to pick one or the other. As it says in the legal interpretation, the language of the requirements in 61.129A4 is clear that a pilot must choose either to log the 10 hours of solo flight time or log the 10 hours as flight time performing the duties of pilot in command with an authorized instructor on board. Done. A pilot must choose to log all 10 hours as solo flight time in a single-engine airplane. The example was a single-engine airplane in this case. Or in the alternative, log all 10 hours performing the duties of a pilot in command in a single-engine airplane with an authorized instructor on board. A combination of hours is not permissible under the rule. So you can't mix and match. You have to do either 10 hours of supervised PIC or 10 hours of solo. And you take your pick, whichever applies to you. Let's move on to this next legal interpretation, which will help you understand this logging of time a little better. Kuhn, 2014. Okay, this is discussing who can log PIC during this flight. And this one's interesting because there are some nuances here. Because, as stated in this legal interpretation, because this flight time is a substitute for solo flight time, the pilot is not receiving instruction and therefore cannot log this time as dual instruction received. So if you are performing supervised PIC, the pilot receiving the training cannot log dual time. In the logbook, you can't have dual for this supervised PIC 10 hours. The pilot could log PIC time under 6151E if the pilot has a private pilot certificate with the appropriate ratings for the aircraft. So you can't log dual, and you can only log PIC during this 10 hours. The person receiving the training can only log PIC if they have a rating in the aircraft. For example, if I'm a commercial airplane pilot and I'm seeking a commercial rotorcraft helicopter certificate, and I do my 10 hours of supervised PIC with an authorized instructor on board, I cannot log dual in my logbook, and I cannot, according to this, log PIC in my logbook for this 10 hours of time. Hang on, I know you're asking some questions there. Well, what about this counting towards the PIC total? It addresses that. So it says here, otherwise a pilot cannot log PIC time. So if you don't have a rating in the aircraft, you cannot log PIC time during this 10 hours of supervised PIC. So keep note of that. Then there's a however. However, 61.129 permits crediting of the time toward the 100 hours of PIC time required for the commercial pilot certificate under 61.129A2. The logbook entry should accurately reflect the provision under which the flight time is logged. So what they're saying is you can't log PIC, but you can count that PIC towards your total to meet the requirements for PIC total for the certificate. Bit weird, not sure why they did it that way, but that's just how it is. So you can't log PIC in your logbook, but you can count that 10 hours of PIC toward your total and annotate that in your logbook. If you have a rating, for example, I'm a private pilot helicopter going for a commercial helicopter certificate, then of course that 10 hours of supervised PIC can be logged as PIC time because I have a rating in the aircraft and I'm the sole manipulator of the flight controls as we discussed in 6151E. So, in summary, CFI can log PIC time during the whole period. During that 10 hours, if you have a rating in that category and class, you may log PIC during that 10 hours. If you do not have a rating in the aircraft, you cannot log PIC. However, that 10 hours does count towards your total to meet the requirement of the commercial certificate. Log it appropriately. And you cannot log dual in any of those flights. Otherwise, it's not supervised PIC. Because you're acting as PIC, You can't be trained. That's what dual is, so you can't log it. Okay, leave me some questions, make some comments. If you have any further questions on the rule, let me know, and I will leave the links to these two legal interpretations in the comments. Thanks for listening. All right, take care. God bless. Bye.